No one knew why, until an association was spotted by doctors that Lucy Letby was on shift when these deaths occurred.
What we see here is a spreadsheet that was presented to the court as a key piece of evidence. It's a chart showing across the top all the different nurses who worked on the ward, and down the side you have 25 suspicious events. And what we see is that there's a pattern of X's throughout the column with Lucy Letby's name on.
The rota spreadsheet covers 13 months between June 2015 and June 2016 and shows Letby at the scene of 25 suspicious events. She is the one common denominator.
I'm Peter Green, Emeritus Professor of Statistics here in Bristol, and I've a long career studying various aspects of statistics. This rota appears extremely damning because it's a very simple story to tell. And the eye is naturally drawn to what seems to be an extremely strong coincidence. She's always there when these events happen. There was enough in the papers in that time to understand that there had been a pattern of excess deaths in a particular ward in this hospital in Chester, and that there was a suspicion fallen on this particular nurse.
But the Lucy Letby case isn't unique. In 2003, Lucia de Burke, a Dutch paediatric nurse, was convicted in the Netherlands of multiple murders and attempted murders. Like Lucy Letby, Lucia de Burke was accused of being responsible for a cluster of unexpected deaths, and the police were called in. But she was later acquitted when statisticians questioned the data evidence used against her.
My name is Richard Gill. I'm a retired professor of mathematical statistics. The case of Lucia de Burke is thought by many people to have been the biggest miscarriage of justice in the Netherlands. It was the Lucy Letby case. The cases have everything in common. A nurse who is a bit different from other nurses. There are bad things happening in the hospital and the nurse gets to blame. Thinking, which starts with the idea that we have a serial killer and we already know who she is and we've got to prove it. So the tunnel vision is the same. You have people dying in a place where people die. And it makes the scenario already completely different from the usual murder investigation. In the usual murder investigation, you start with some murders and look for who did them. And it's very, very dangerous to start with a preconceived idea that somebody did it. My job was to explain to ordinary people that the statistics did not say that she was guilty.
After almost 7 years in prison, Lucia de Burke was exonerated and released.
Finally, they had to admit that I was innocent, that the people, the children, all died natural causes.
You were released from prison. The Attorney General of the Netherlands called you to his office to personally apologize.
Yeah.
Will you go back to nursing?
No, never. No. Mm-mm. I'd always be afraid something happened.
But that was your profession. That was what you loved to do.
They took that from me too.
When Lucia was exonerated, well, I was in the court. It was one of the most beautiful days of my life. Everything about the Lucy Letby case made me feel sick. It was the same story again. And terrible that nobody in England seemed to have ever heard of Lucia de Burke.
This is the report that we produced for the Royal Statistical Society. Healthcare serial killer or coincidence, statistical issues in the investigation of suspected medical misconduct. This concerns trials of medical professionals who are accused partly on the basis of data collected, which maps their duty rosters against the times of the adverse events. And so the assumption is that their presence on the ward is probable cause of the death. What we sought to write down here was guidelines for the analysis and interpretation of data of this kind. Now, my concerns about these data are, what was the selection of an event as being suspicious? Were all these nurses actually on ward duty? Why are the doctors not visible in this chart? So all of those things seem to us to be potentially sources of bias. But the main thing is there's no other information about all these suspicious events or other information about the infants concerned.
And now, questions have emerged about the other deaths which occurred in the unit during this time period.
Lucy Letby was charged with 7 murders, and the jury only heard about those. What we should all know is that there were many other deaths in that ward. Estimates vary of how many more, but at least 6 other deaths during the period covered by this duty roster. And evidence about those were not presented in the court. Why did they happen? When we're teaching statistics, we show our students good and bad practice. And this spreadsheet, as presented in the courtroom, is a lovely example of how not to do something.